Every survival video shows you the same thing. Somebody scoops water out of a creek, runs it through something, and drinks it while smiling at the camera. And almost none of them tell you the part that actually matters, which is that the thing they are drinking through removes some contaminants and does absolutely nothing about others. And that the difference between those two lists is the difference between a bad afternoon and a hospital. So I am going to do this properly. There is a setup that costs about $30, weighs almost nothing, packs into a bag, and will produce clean drinking water from a creek, a pond, a ditch, or a rain barrel, at a rate of gallons rather than cupfuls. It needs no well, no power, no chemicals, and no fuel. And to honest things before we go a step further, because I am not going to spring either on you halfway through. The first is that the bicycle pump does not clean anything. Let me be completely plain about that, because the title puts a pump in the headline, and I am not going to let you misunderstand it. A pump moves water and applies pressure. The cleaning is done by a filter, and the pump exists to push water through that filter far faster than gravity ever will. The second is bigger, and it is the one that keeps people safe. There is a specific list of things this removes, and a specific list of things it does not touch at all. And if you get those lists confused, this setup will make water that looks perfect, tastes perfect, and harms you. I will give you both lists in full. And one more thing, which I will come back to at the end. There is a single habit that decides whether your filter produces 50 gallons or 5,000 from the same cartridge, and almost nobody who buys one of these is ever told about it. I will show you exactly what it is, because it is the difference between a filter that lasts a season and one that lasts years. Let me start with what is actually in dirty water, because you cannot choose a filter without it. There are 5 categories of things that can be in water. You find outdoors, and they are wildly different in size, which is the whole reason filtration works at all. The largest are sediment and organic debris, silt, sand, leaf matter, algae, visible or nearly visible, and easy to remove. Next are protozoan parasites, which are single-celled organisms measured in a handful of microns. Giardia and Cryptosporidium are the 2 everybody names, and they are the classic cause of the illness people associate with drinking from streams. They are relatively large as contaminants go, which is good news. Then bacteria, which are smaller again, generally somewhere in the region of a fraction of a micron, up to a few microns, E. coli, Salmonella, cholera, still physically large enough to be caught by a fine enough barrier, then viruses, which are dramatically smaller, in the region of hundreds of a micron. This is where physical filtration starts to fail, and I will come back to it because it is the most important limitation in this whole subject. And finally, dissolved substances, which are not particles at all. Salt, heavy metals, agricultural chemicals, industrial contamination. These are dissolved into the water at molecular level, and no ordinary filter removes them because there is nothing to strain out. They are part of the liquid. Hold on to that list, because everything that follows is about which of those 5 a given filter catches. Now the filter itself, and the technology that made this cheap, the standard for lightweight water filtration is the hollow fiber membrane, and it is genuinely elegant. Inside the cartridge, there is a bundle of extremely fine tubes, each one with microscopic pores through its wall. Water is forced into the tubes, and it passes out through those pore walls, and anything larger than the pore simply cannot follow it. The typical pore size in these filters is around 1/10 of a micron. That number is the whole specification. At 1/10 of a micron, sediment is stopped, protozoa are stopped comfortably, and bacteria are stopped, because all 3 of those are physically bigger than the whole. Viruses are not stopped because most of them are smaller than the whole, and there is nothing clever about it. It is a sieve, and a sieve with 1/10 of a micron hole does not catch 1/100th of a micron object. Ceramic filters work on the same principle with a different material, a porous ceramic candle rather than fibers, and they are cleaned by scrubbing the outside rather than backflushing. The reason these are so cheap now is manufacturing. Hollow fiber membranes came out of industrial and medical filtration, where they are made in enormous quantity, and once that production existed, the outdoor market got the benefit. So now let me deal with the doubt that some of you are sitting with, because it is the right question. You are thinking that if a $30 setup could genuinely produce safe water anywhere, aid agencies would not be shipping bottled water into disasters, and half the problems in the world would already be solved. That objection is fair, and the answer is specific. Filters of exactly this type genuinely are deployed at enormous scale in humanitarian work and in rural water programs, and they have prevented an extraordinary amount of illness. This is not a fringe product. It is mainstream public health equipment. What they do not solve is the other half of the problem, which is chemical and dissolved contamination. In situations where the water source itself is the issue rather than the microbes in it, a filter is superb against biological contamination and useless against a poisoned aquifer. And a great many of the world's hardest water problems are the second kind. So the honest position is that this technology works. It works well, it is used seriously, and it addresses one specific category of threat extremely effectively. Now, let me build the thing, because it is genuinely simple. You need 3 components. A filter, which is doing all the actual work. A hollow fiber squeeze or inline filter runs somewhere in the region of $20 to $30, and a basic ceramic unit is in a similar range. This is not the place to economize, and it is the only component whose specification genuinely matters. A vessel, which is where your dirty water sits, a sturdy plastic bottle, a bladder, or a small pressure vessel. Free to a few dollars, and a pressure source, which is where the bicycle pump comes in. Any hand pump with a suitable fitting, and most people already own one. The arrangement is straightforward. Dirty water goes in the vessel. The pump pressurizes the air above it. That pressure pushes the water down through the filter and out the other side, and clean water comes out the outlet. Now, why bother with the pump at all, since gravity filters exist and work perfectly well, because of flow rate, and the arithmetic here is worth knowing. Gravity gives you a little under half a pound per square inch for every foot of height. So a bag hung 3 feet above your filter is giving that filter somewhere around 1 1/3 psi of driving pressure. That works, and it is slow, and it gets slower as the bag empties and the head drops. A bicycle pump will comfortably put 20, 30, 40 psi behind the same filter. That is an order of magnitude more driving pressure, and flow rate rises with it. The practical difference is that a gravity setup fills a bottle while you wait, and a pressurized setup fills a bottle while you pump for 30 seconds. Over 50 gallons, that difference is the whole afternoon. The second advantage is control. A gravity bag has to hang, which means you need somewhere to hang it in daylight, at height. A pressurized bottle works on the ground, in the dark, in a tent, in a vehicle. And the third is that pressure lets you push through a filter that is starting to clog, which is a mixed blessing, and I will come back to it. A note on pressure though, and this matters, every filter has a maximum working pressure, and hollow fiber membranes are not indestructible. Push hard enough and you can damage the membrane, and a damaged membrane is far more dangerous than a slow one, because it will still produce clear water while no longer filtering properly. So find your filter's rated pressure and stay well under it. Firm, steady pumping, not a race. Now, what this genuinely removes, and I said I would give you both lists in full, it removes sediment and turbidity comprehensively. It removes protozoa, including Giardia and Cryptosporidium, and Cryptosporidium matters particularly because it resists chlorine. So filtration is the primary defense against it. It removes bacteria at a rating that public health bodies accept for that purpose. That is a genuinely strong list. Those 3 categories account for the overwhelming majority of illness from drinking untreated water in most temperate outdoor settings. Now the list of what it does not remove, and this is the section to pay attention to. It does not remove viruses. Hepatitis A, norovirus, rotavirus. They are too small for a 1/10 of a micron pore. In backcountry water in developed countries, the viral risk is generally considered low. And in water contaminated with human sewage, it is not low at all, and that distinction decides whether a filter alone is enough. It does not remove salt, not a little, none. Seawater goes in salty and comes out salty, and drinking it will harm you faster than the dirty water would have. Removing salt requires reverse osmosis at very high pressure or distillation, and neither is happening with a bicycle pump. Hand-operated desalinators exist for lifeboats, and they cost well over $1,000 for exactly this reason. It does not remove heavy metals. Lead, arsenic, mercury, dissolved, invisible, and untouched. It does not remove most chemicals. Agricultural runoff, pesticides, fuel, industrial contamination. A carbon element helps with taste and with some organic compounds, and it is not a solution to genuine chemical contamination. And it does not remove radiological contamination, which I mention only because it comes up in emergency planning. So the rule that follows from those two lists is simple, and it is the most useful sentence in this video. A filter fixes what is living in the water. It does not fix what the water is made of, which means your choice of source matters more than your choice of filter. Running water beats standing water. Upstream of habitation beats downstream. A spring beats a river. Rainwater collected off a clean surface is excellent, and any water downstream of a mine, a factory, an intensive farm, a landfill, or a road is a chemical question that no filter answers. No matter how good it is, choose the cleanest source you can reach. Then filter it, not the other way round. And on that point, the best source available to most households is one people overlook entirely, which is rain. Rainwater arrives distilled. It fell as vapor, which means it left its salts, its minerals, and its dissolved contamination behind in whatever it evaporated from. Chemically, it starts cleaner than almost any surface water you could collect. What it picks up is on the way down and on the way in, atmospheric dust, and then whatever is on your roof, in your gutter, and in your barrel, which is bird droppings, leaf litter, and whatever grew in the tanks in spring. That is a biological problem, and a biological problem is exactly what a filter solves. So rainwater plus a filter is a genuinely strong combination, far stronger than creek water plus the same filter, because you have eliminated the chemical question at the source rather than hoping about it. Divert the first flush of each storm so the dirtiest run off the roof goes to waste. Keep the tank covered and screened, and you have a supply that is easy to make safe. Anyone building for a genuine emergency should be thinking about a barrel under a downspout, long before they think about hiking to a creek. Now, if your risk includes viruses, you have 3 good options, and they are all cheap. Boiling is the gold standard, and it always has been. Bringing water to a rolling boil kills everything biological, including viruses, and it needs no equipment beyond a pot and heat. It does nothing about chemicals or salt, and for biological safety, it is the most reliable method there is. Chemical treatment, meaning chlorine dioxide, tablets, or drops, handles viruses and bacteria well. It is slow against cryptosporidium, which is why the combination of filtering first and treating second is such a good pairing. Filter for the parasites, treat for the viruses. And solar disinfection, which is worth knowing because it costs nothing. Clear water in a clear plastic bottle, laid on its side in strong direct sun for 6 hours or more, is disinfected by ultraviolet light. It is endorsed by public health bodies as a method for exactly the situations where nothing else is available. And it requires the water to be genuinely clear, which is where your filter helps. Filter first, then treat. That sequence handles essentially the entire biological threat list. Now, the habit I promised you at the start. And it is the one that decides whether your filter gives you 50 gallons or 5,000 backflushing. Here is what is happening inside that cartridge as you use it. Everything the membrane catches stays on the dirty side, building up as a layer across the surface of the fibers. Flow slows. You pump harder, it slows further. Most people conclude the filter is finished at this point, and it is not. It is dirty. Hollow fiber filters are designed to be cleaned by pushing clean water backwards through them, which lifts that accumulated layer off the fibers and flushes it out. Most come with a syringe or a fitting for exactly this, and it takes about a minute. Do it whenever flow drops noticeably, and do it before you put the filter away rather than after, because a filter stored dirty and wet is a filter growing things inside it. A hollow fiber filter that is backflushed regularly is rated for very large volumes, commonly thousands of gallons. The same filter never backflushed will clog and be thrown away long before it has done a fraction of that. That is the entire difference, and it is a minute of work. Ceramic filters are cleaned differently by gently scrubbing the outside of the candle with a brush or a scouring pad, which removes the dirty surface layer. Each cleaning takes away a small amount of the ceramic, which is why those filters have a visible life and are replaced when they get thin. And there is one storage rule that matters more than any of this, and it is the thing that kills more filters than clogging ever does. Never let a hollow fiber filter freeze while it is wet. Water expands when it freezes, and those fibers are microscopically thin. Freeze water inside them and they crack, And here is the dangerous part. A cracked, hollow fiber filter looks completely normal, flows beautifully, and no longer filters. You cannot see the damage, and it will not tell you. So if you are somewhere, it freezes, that filter comes into the tent, into the sleeping bag, or into the vehicle with you. And if you suspect one has frozen, retire it. Not maybe retire it. Dry it thoroughly before long-term storage, and store it somewhere it will not freeze. Now the honest limits, all of them. The first is the one I have given you twice, and it is the only one that can hurt you. Filters handle biology. They do not handle chemistry or salt. The second is flow rate. This is a device for producing drinking water and cooking water. Producing 50 gallons for washing and general use is possible, and it is a lot of pumping. And if you need bulk water for a household, gravity systems with larger filters and bigger bags are a better tool. The third is turbidity. Genuinely muddy water will clog any fine filter quickly. Let it settle first, or pre-filter it through a cloth, and your filter will last dramatically longer. 2 minutes of settling saves a great deal of cleaning. That pre-treatment step deserves more than a sentence, because it is free and almost nobody does it. Collect your water and let it stand. 20 minutes in a bucket drops most of the sand and grit to the bottom, and an hour drops a great deal more. Then pour off the top carefully and leave the last inch behind. If it is still cloudy, pour it through a cloth, a bandana, a coffee filter, or a folded shirt. That catches leaf matter, insects, and the larger suspended material that would otherwise blind your membrane within a few liters. And if you have a bucket and time, there is an old trick worth knowing. Let the water stand overnight, and the difference is remarkable, because a great deal of what makes water look dirty is simply suspended and will fall out on its own if left alone. None of that makes the water safe. It makes the water clear, and clear water is what a fine filter is designed to handle. Feeding a $100 filter with muddy water and then complaining that it clogged is like running an engine without an air filter and being surprised. 2 containers, 20 minutes, and a cloth. That is the cheapest performance upgrade in this entire subject. The fourth is that pressure can mask a problem. A clogging filter under gravity simply stops, which tells you something is wrong. Under 30 CAI, you can push through a filter that is fouled or damaged and never notice, and that is the one genuine downside of the pump. The fifth is cross-contamination, which is the mistake nobody expects. If you handle the clean outlet with hands that have been in the dirty water, you have just undone the entire process. Keep the dirty side and the clean side separate. Keep the outlet capped, and think about which hand is doing what. And the sixth is that these systems have moving parts in the sense that seals perish. Fittings crack, and a pump left in a shed for 5 years may not hold pressure when you need it. Test it once a year. On safety, most of what needs saying, I have said. And there are 3 things left. If you are in any doubt about a water source, boil it. That advice is a century old, and it is still the correct answer. If somebody in your group is immunocompromised, elderly, very young, or pregnant, raise your standard rather than lowering it, because the consequences of getting this wrong are not evenly distributed. And if you are treating water in a genuine emergency, in a flood, or after a disaster, understand that floodwater is a chemical and sewage problem as much as a microbial one, and a filter is not the whole answer. Bottled or delivered water is better if it exists. So this week, here is what I would do, and none of it costs much. First, buy the filter before you need it, and use it once, at home, on tap water, so you know how it assembles and how fast it flows when it is new. Every failure in an emergency is somebody using equipment for the first time under pressure. Second, backflush it after that first use, so you have done it once and know what it feels like. Third, look at your actual water options where you live. A creek, a pond, a rain barrel, a neighbor's well. Decide now which of those you would use, and think honestly about what is upstream of it, because that decision matters more than any equipment you buy. Fourth, put a means of boiling in the same box as the filter, a pot and a way to make heat. Those 2 together cover far more than either alone. And fifth, check whether that filter will be somewhere it can freeze, and if it will, move it. Tell me in the comments what your nearest realistic water source would be if the taps stopped, and whether you know what is upstream of it. I read every one of these, and I suspect the second half of that question is the one most people have never thought about. Here is the thing worth keeping from all of it. For most of human history, unsafe water was one of the largest killers there was. And the solution, when it arrived, was not clever chemistry. It was a barrier fine enough to stop the things that make people ill, and the understanding of which things those were. A $30 setup in a bag now does what municipal engineering could not do for most of the world a century ago, and it does it on a creek bank with a bicycle pump. That is genuinely remarkable, and it is only true as long as you know precisely what it removes and what it leaves behind. Clear water is not the same as clean water, and a filter that produces the first while ignoring the second is the most dangerous piece of equipment you can own, because it is the only one that lies to you convincingly. Know your two lists. Choose your source first, filter second. Boil if you are unsure.